defendant. So if the defendant says nothing, they violated the statute, you've got breach. If they come up with an argument, I had an excuse for violating it, then it'll be whether or not any reasonable person would have done the same thing. That's an excused violation. Or it was impossible not to violate it. Yeah, there was a stop sign there, but nobody could see it. That's an excused violation. Yes, I did cross the double yellow line. That's because a kid darted out in front of my car. I only crossed the yellow line to save the child's life. That's an excused violation. At the extremes, again, it's always easy. The Zenny case we saw last week is an example where it's highly arguable. The woman was walking in the street. The statute says that where there's sidewalks, walk on a sidewalk, not in the street. She was doing it during rush hour. But it was in Minnesota where there's 21 inches of snow on the sidewalk. And there was a well-trodden path in the street. But there were cars in the street. She got splattered by one of the cars. She claimed, the defendant claimed, the woman plaintiff was contributory negligent. She breached her duty of reasonable care for her own safety. And used the statute, saying she violated the sidewalk statute. The court refused to adopt it. They said in this case, they weren't trying to prevent these kind of harms because it's an excused violation. And therefore, or they did adopt it as a standard of care, but saying the violation was an excuse. That was arguable. Why it was more safe. They tried to prove it was more safe to walk in the street than on the sidewalk because someone had slipped and fell on the sidewalk. But they weren't hurt when they slipped and fell. They came up with other evidence that someone did slip and fall and was hurt. But in this case, this woman was seriously hurt by walking in the street with all the traffic. So whether it was more dangerous to walk on the sidewalk or in the street, it should have been left to the jury. And I think was in that case. But they found excused violation. So if it's arguable, make your arguments and reach a conclusion and move on. That's all there is in the statute stuff. Unexcused violation of a statute the court adopted is breach per se. The courts will adopt the statute if the plaintiff is a member of the class intended to be protected, the harm suffered was among the harms they were intending to prevent. What comes after statute violation? Res ipsa. Let me just take a quick break here. How much time do we have, Marvin? Okay, now we come to res ipsa, or res ipsa loquitur, the Latin phrase, the thing speaks for itself. Again, it's not a rule, it's a way of proving breach, just a method. But if you're going to use this, it's subject to requirements. What you're really arguing is I got circumstantial evidence that this defendant did not use reasonable care. They say, oh yeah, what's your circumstantial evidence? Your answer is the accident itself. The accident itself, the res ipsa, proves breach. It speaks. It says there's breach. So certain accidents, from their very nature and the circumstance surrounding them, show somebody's been negligent. And they show that this defendant is the negligent party. If you can prove breach with the accident, then you've proved it. How do courts approach using the accident to prove breach? Well, there's two requirements that the courts use. First, you look at the accident. You've proven the accident. Okay, what does that show? Is this the type of accident that ordinarily would not occur unless somebody's been negligent? If it's the kind of accident ordinarily wouldn't occur unless somebody's been negligent, then the accident itself shows breach. A piano falls on your car while you're driving by. Now, is that the kind of accident that happens when everyone's using reasonable care? No. If everybody's using reasonable care, pianos don't fall out of the sky. So somebody is screwed up. What proves that to us? The accident itself. So the first requirement is it the type of accident that ordinarily would not occur in the absence of negligence? How do you be persuasive that it is? You keep saying, well, if everyone involved used reasonable care, more likely than not, this wouldn't have happened. But it did happen. So the fact that it happened shows somebody's been negligent. Airplanes commercial airplanes falling out of the sky. They don't, statistically speaking, airplanes land safely. If they fall out of the sky, more likely than not, somebody has been negligent. Somebody's failed to use reasonable care. In the maintenance of it, the flying of it, the building of it, somebody's been negligent. Why? Because statistically it's such a safe way of travel that we know when we hear that accident, more likely, maybe not, but more likely somebody's been negligent. The standard is more likely than not. The second requirement, though, is now you've proven negligence, you still have to prove it's this defendant's negligence. So the second requirement is it more likely than not the negligence we've proven? Is it more likely than not this defendant's negligence? Sometimes it will be, sometimes it won't be. Two cars crash. Is that the kind of accident that shows negligence? Yes. Everyone's using reasonable care in the manufacture, maintenance, and driving of cars, and the drawing of the lines on the streets, and the operating the safety signs and stoplights. If everyone involved uses reasonable care, more likely than not, two cars are not going to crash. In fact, usually one of the drivers is probably negligent. But it's an accident that shows probable negligence. And therefore, you've met the first requirement. You're the passenger in the red car. Has the red car driver been negligent? Well, the answer is no. You don't have any circumstances to show the red car is the more likely negligent party. Why? Because two cars crashed. Two moving cars crashed. It's equally likely it was the other driver. You don't have anything to show that the driver of the red car is more likely the negligent party. They may be the negligent party, but you can't prove it from the accident itself. You need more facts. Therefore, plaintiff would lose using the res ipsa approach. They sued the driver of the blue car. The same thing would happen. You got to prove the case against the driver of the blue car. Does the accident show negligence? Of course it does. Is it more likely than not the blue car driver's negligence? We don't know. Burden of proof's on you. You lose. It's 50-50 between the two drivers. If you change those facts, you've got someone driving and smashes into a parked car. Is that the kind of accident that shows negligence? Yeah, more likely than not. Ordinary course of events. Everyone uses reasonable care. One car can get past the parked car. They don't run into the parked car. That's the ordinary circumstance, more likely. So we've proven negligence with a crash. Is it more likely than not the driver's negligence? Or is it equally likely someone else's? Well, in this case, it's more likely the driver. It may have been a bad mechanic or something, but the driver's in exclusive control of the moving vehicle. The other car's parked, so it's not likely the other car. And the courts have accepted where you're in exclusive control of the instrumentality that brings about the harm. They'll say, we'll let the jury conclude if they choose that it's more likely than not this defendant's negligence. So, again, what you're looking for is first prove there's negligence. Don't jump to the driver and the defendant. First characterize the accident, say that proves somebody's been negligent. Then narrow it down to say under the circumstances, can we conclude it's more likely than not this defendant's negligence? If you've got exclusive control over the instrumentality, you're home free. The courts have said the party in exclusive control of the instrumentality that brings about the harm is the more likely party to be the negligent one. If you don't have exclusive control, that doesn't mean you've lost. It's just you're going to need some other circumstance that makes it more likely than not this defendant. We saw that with the Sony TV example. Tracy bought the Sony TV brand new from Sony, no one else, took it straight home, plugged it in, turned it on, and blew up. Who was in exclusive control of the instrumentality at the time of the accident? Tracy was. Sony had left the control of Sony. Can we use res ipsa against Sony? Yeah. A brand new TV blowing up, somebody's been negligent. Ordinary course of events, more likely than not, if everyone's using reasonable care, TVs don't blow up when they're brand new and you plug them in and turn them on. Is it more likely than not Sony's negligence? Well, they're not in exclusive control, but where the plaintiff has handled the new product, it's a brand new product, they've handled it normally, they haven't dropped it or danced on it, then it's more likely than not Sony's, even though they're not in exclusive control. So exclusive control is not a requirement. It's a factor that will help you meet the second requirement. But if you don't have it, you may still have circumstances making it more likely than not this defendant's negligence. And that's all you have to show with the statute violation. Cause and fact, I'm going to leave to you. You've got the outline there and you've got the cases to read. So try out analyzing cause and fact when you get the practice exam 2 weeks from now, if I'm not back. If I'm back, we'll go back to our ordinary class routine. But cause and fact, the rule for cause and fact, the standard is, was the breach a substantial factor